think you can lie to me? You think you can spit on my badge and walk away?
I didn't.
Please, look at me! You don't get to cry your way out of this.
That's what I'm saying, Sarge!
I'm gonna answer for every word you said, understand?
Put your hands where I can see them. The command sliced through the air, loud, hostile, absolute. The woman didn't move. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth as blue lights flashed against her calm, unblinking face. The crowd held its breath. The officer's chest heaved, adrenaline masking the mistake he'd just made. Then, more sirens. Dozens of them. Police cruisers swarmed from every direction. But they weren't coming for her protection, or his support. Because in moments he'd learned the truth. He'd just assaulted the new city police chief. Welcome, story lovers. Where are you watching from? Hit the like button and drop your city name in the comments so we can see how far our story travels. It was supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. The sun hung low over the quiet streets of Brookfield, a small but bustling city still carrying the weight of its own contradictions, progressive on paper, divided in spirit. Commuters rushed home, horns honked in the distance, and somewhere amid the noise, Danielle Hayes adjusted her rearview mirror before pulling into the flow of traffic. To anyone watching, she was just another driver, a composed black woman in her late 30s wearing a neat navy blouse and gold badge chain tucked beneath it. Not visible, not yet. Her car's interior smelled faintly of coffee and leather. Papers were neatly stacked in the passenger seat, a testament to her precision. Life for Danielle was structured, disciplined, almost ceremonial. After years in law enforcement, she believed in doing things by the book. Even when the book didn't always protect people like her, Brookfield was her new start, a city she'd been transferred to only a week ago. It was her chance to lead, to reform a department that had been making headlines for all the wrong reasons. She kept her appointment low profile. The official announcement of her new position wasn't scheduled until the following morning. For now, she was just Danielle, an unfamiliar face behind the wheel, invisible in a city that hadn't yet learned her name. But beneath the calm rhythm of her day, something darker brewed in the distance. The siren of injustice always seemed to echo closest when least expected. And as she turned down an unfamiliar street, catching the flash of red and blue lights in her mirror, she didn't flinch. She'd been on both sides of those lights before, as protector and as target. Still, there was something about this stop, the sharpness of the siren, the aggression in its tone, that told her this wasn't going to be routine. Not this time. She exhaled slowly, her hand steady on the wheel. The city didn't know it yet, but what was about to unfold would change everything. The patrol car screeched to a halt behind her, its lights painting the street in alternating flashes of red and blue. Danielle's fingers rested lightly on the steering wheel, her movements calm, deliberate, a quiet defiance that came from years of experience. Through the rearview mirror, she saw the officer approach, young, rigid. His stride was heavy with the kind of authority that came, less from training and more from unchecked ego. He tapped the window, hard. License and registration. His tone was clipped. Impatient, not a request, but a demand. Danielle nodded and reached slowly for her purse, careful to keep her movements visible. Every instinct told her to stay composed, to avoid escalation. She'd seen how quickly these moments could turn into tragedies. The officer's eyes darted to the back seat, then to her hands. "Why are you in this neighborhood?" he asked, his suspicion loud enough to drown out the city noise. Danielle looked up briefly, offering no answer, just quiet compliance. She knew that sometimes silence was the only protection she had. Minutes stretched. His irritation grew. He leaned closer, inspecting her face as though searching for guilt. "You think you can just ignore me?" His words came sharp, cutting. A few pedestrians had stopped, sensing tension. Phones lifted discreetly, recording. Danielle could feel the heat of their stares pressing through the glass. She handed over her license with her name, Danielle Hayes, clearly printed across the top. He didn't look at it long enough to read. Instead, he scoffed. "You people never learn, do you?" It wasn't the first time she'd heard those words, but this time something inside her shifted. Not anger, control. Her training echoed in her mind. Stay calm. De-escalate. Do not react. He ordered her out of the car. Danielle complied, every step measured, her posture straight. The officer's voice rose, drawing attention. "You think you can disrespect me?" he shouted, his hand hovering near his holster. The crowd grew. Someone whispered, "Why's he so mad?" She didn't even do anything. And then it happened. Sudden, explosive, irreversible. The officer shoved her shoulder. When she didn't flinch, he struck her. A sharp, violent punch across the face that sent her stumbling. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. A woman screamed. Someone shouted, "She's not fighting back!" Phones were now everywhere, recording from every angle. Danielle didn't raise her hands, didn't shout. She simply stood, her gaze fixed, cold and unwavering. A silence thicker than anger filled the space between them. For a moment, even the officer seemed unsure. Her stillness unnerved him. His breathing quickened, confusion mixing with guilt, though pride held his jaw tight. Then, the distant sound of sirens. More patrol cars are closing in. The officer straightened, ready to justify himself, already imagining backup arriving to support his version of events. But as the vehicles screeched to a stop, something shifted in the crowd's energy. Officers stepped out, not toward her, but to her. Their eyes widened, hands instinctively moving to their foreheads in salute. The young cop froze. The world around him blurred as realization set in. The woman he had just struck, the one he had called nobody, was the incoming chief of police, and the cameras were still rolling. The moment hung heavy in the air. Silence, louder than sirens. Disbelief sharper than any word spoken. The young officer's hand trembled slightly, still half raised as the others approached. He expected backup, but what he saw instead was command. The older officers moved past him, their faces pale as they took in the scene. Danielle stood motionless, blood tracing a faint line along her cheek, her expression unreadable. One of the sergeants stopped beside her, his voice low, steady. "Chief Hayes, are you all right?" The word hit like a thunderclap. Chief. The crowd erupted in murmurs. The officer stumbled back, eyes darting between them. "Chief?" he whispered, disbelief and dread mixing in his tone. It was too late. Cameras were everywhere, catching every second, every breath of his realization. The arrogance that had powered his rage evaporated, replaced by raw, choking panic. He saw his career collapse, not because of bad luck, but because of the truth he refused to see. The truth that authority isn't bound to skin color or stereotype. Danielle didn't move. Her silence was punishment enough. Around her, officers stood rigid, waiting for instruction, but she gave none. Her power wasn't in retaliation, it was in restraint. For the first time, he understood what actual authority looked like. Not the kind worn on a badge, but the kind that stands unbroken in the face of injustice. And in that single, searing moment, everyone watching finally saw it too. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. The footage spread across Brookfield within hours. What began as a routine stop had become a symbol, one that no press release or apology could silence. News outlets replayed the moment endlessly, the punch, the stare, the salute. The story fractured the city's illusion of fairness, forcing everyone to confront what had long been ignored. Danielle returned to duty the next morning. The bruise on her cheek had already begun to fade, but the memory wouldn't. As she stood before the same department that had once looked at her as an outsider, there was no anger in her eyes, only resolve. She spoke not as a victim, but as a leader. Her words were calm, measured, but heavy with truth. "Accountability," she said, "starts with courage. Not when it's easy, but when it's uncomfortable." The young officer faced suspension, investigation, and public backlash. But for Danielle, it was never just about him. It was about every silent prejudice, every unchecked power, every face that turned away when they should have stood up. The city began to change, slowly, because she didn't just lead with authority. She led with grace, the kind that demands reflection. And yet beneath the progress, one haunting question lingered in the minds of all who saw that video. if she hadn't been the police chief. Would anyone have cared? This wasn't just one woman's story. It was a mirror held up to the world, asking us all to look closer. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more powerful stories and share this to keep the conversation alive.